Lesson 13. In Lesson 13 we're working more with multiple symbols of inclusion, order of operation, and products of signed numbers. In this lesson you can see straight away for our first problem we've got to simplify, we're given a fraction, and we've got all three of our types of symbols of inclusion. We've got our parentheses, we've got our brackets, and we've got our braces. So we've got to work from the innermost set of symbols of inclusion to the outermost set before we end up multiplying in the end and dividing. Let's go ahead and get started on this problem. So first off, we've got -3, and then you can see we've got our brace and our bracket, and then we've got -2 minus 3. That's like saying -2 plus -3. -2 plus -3 is -5. So we have -5 within our parenthesis. We're going to copy all those symbols of inclusion. So we've got a bracket, another bracket, a -2, close bracket, close brace. We want to make sure we get them all in there. And we're going to divide this by -3 times 4 minus 2. Now we know 4 minus 2, we can simplify that. That's 2. And we'll keep going from here. Now, in our numerator, we want to make sure that we multiply whenever the symbols of inclusion touch. So we have -5 times -2. That's going to be our first step as we rewrite. So this is going to be equal to, we've got -3, then we've got our brace, and we've got our two brackets. And you can see within the brackets, -5 times -2, the opposite of a negative, that's a positive. So we're going to get a 10 and a closed brace. Now we don't need the double symbols of inclusion, but I put them there this time. It's alright to put them there, it doesn't make any difference. And then we have -3 times 2, we've got -6, and now we can continue to multiply. We have a number touching a symbol of inclusion, so that's multiplication. We're going to get -30, -3 times 10 is -30, divided by -6. Now, we know a negative divided by a negative, the opposite of a negative is a positive, so 30 divided by 6 is 5. We have our final answer. This one, we're able to take this whole thing and simplify it down to the answer of 5. It should feel good if you understand this one thoroughly. If you don't, watch the video one more time or write down your question. Next problem we have, read the directions carefully because this one says, determine the signs of the following products. Do not do the multiplications. So you don't even have to do the multiply. You don't even have to multiply. All you have to do is say whether the answer is positive or negative. So this first one, we've got the opposite of a positive. That's a negative. So this is going to be equal to a negative. That's all you have to do for this type of problem is write whether it's going to be positive or negative. -3 times -2. That's going to be positive. Now if we look more, we can see we've got a negative, a positive, a negative, and a negative. So what we're looking at is the opposite of the opposite of a negative. The opposite of the opposite of a negative, well, if we look at that once, the opposite of a negative is a positive, and the opposite of a positive is a negative, so this answer must be negative. And then we've got 4 here, so essentially we've got 4 negatives, the opposite of the opposite of the opposite of the negative, and that must be a positive. Now you might notice a pattern here, and that pattern works all the time. So when we had an even number of negatives that we were multiplying, like these two, even number of negatives, we get a positive answer. Even number of negative factors, and the factor is just what you're multiplying. Will always give you a positive answer. And then if you look at the other one, the first and the third example, we've got a negative and we've got a negative. So this is an odd number of negative factors. And you can always just count the number of negative factors that you have to figure out the symbol. And we'll look at that really quickly after I get this written down. So, 1 negative, that's odd, so it must be a negative. 2 negative factors, that's even, so it must be positive. 3 must be negative. 4 That's an even number, so it must be positive. And we've got the rule that we can always follow for this type of problem. Our lesson practice is on page 61. Make sure you've got your notes done and you're prepared for class. Have a nice afternoon.